Hello, listener. You will be able to enjoy Cosmic Motion even if we're discussing a movie you have not yet seen. But as we're talking about many elements of this film and will almost certainly spoil some aspects, if you'd rather not know anything in advance, watch the movie first and then come back and join our discussion. See you then. Welcome to episode 17 of Cosmic Motion, an audio program where filmmakers of all kinds discuss motion pictures, good, bad, ugly, and always interesting throughout the cinematic cosmos. We're recording this on March 9th, 2025. I'm here with my modern drifting cowboy of a co-host, Colin Dixon.
Hey!
Colin is a multimedia editor.
And I'm here with my cowpoke, Bill Boudel. He is a writer, director, occasional actor, raconteur, Tor Johnson, Tori Spelling, Rip Torn, Torgo.
This week our guest is Frank Merle. Frank is a proud member of the Producers Guild of America and an award-winning filmmaker with a background in theater directing and producing. He began making short films in 2006, and his first few shorts, What Joan Knows, Morgan's Last Call, Art Room, and Gnaw, all won multiple film festival awards. Since making the move to feature filmmaking, he has produced and or directed several award-winning feature films, including the critically acclaimed feature thriller The Employer, starring Malcolm McDowell from A Clockwork Orange and Billy Zane from Titanic, and 3 films in the popular Jennifer series, For Jennifer, To Jennifer, and From Jennifer, starring Derek Mears from Friday the 13th and Tony Todd from Candyman. He is currently directing a tropical thriller named NAMAKA, starring Jamie Kennedy from Scream 1 through 3 and David Howard Thornton. Terrifier 1 through 3. Welcome, Frank.
Wow, that is a great bio. Who wrote that?
I don't know. Man. I won't tell if you don't.
All right.
What? So you came in from theater. Mm-hmm. That was your first passion, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely. When I was a kid, I loved films, but I never thought I could make films because I wasn't special. Mm-hmm. The people who made movies were magical people to me.
Yeah, magical over there somewhere.
Yeah, and theater was attainable. Theater was something in high school I was in plays, mm-hmm. but I very quickly figured out that I didn't want to be an actor. I didn't need that applause. I saw that the other actors in my shows, really lived for the applause. Mm-hmm. And I was much more interested in the storytelling aspect. And mm-hmm. I was interested in what was going on behind the scenes. I wanted to learn a little bit about everything that went into that show. So I got into writing, mm-hmm. started writing plays, and I was pretty good at it. And I went to the theater school at DePaul University for actually playwriting and theater craft, stagecraft. And while I was there, I realized what I really wanted to do was produce, direct and produce, because that's, again, the storytelling aspect of it, right? And so myself and some other students at the time, upon graduate, this was in Chicago, mm-hmm. great theater town.
Yes.
So absolutely. Myself and some other students, as we were graduating, started a theater company. And I spent most of my 20s doing that.
What was it called?
Keyhole Theater Company.
Okay.
And, we did everything from Shakespeare and, Arthur Miller plays to new works. And it was very successful. I produced 5 or 6 shows a year. I kept myself very busy. But what started to happen was I started getting really depressed every time a show ended. Mm-hmm. Because you'd put all this work in, even if it was a hit show, a couple hundred people a night would see it, right? Mm-hmm. And even a hit show that we extended would last 6 or 8 weeks, maybe 12. Mm-hmm. It was probably the longest show I'd ever had running. And then it's done. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
We had videotaped it, but you don't want to watch a videotape of a play. I promise you. And but that's what started getting me interested in film, was the permanence of it.
Right, capturing it.
Yes, that you could do the same amount of work, spend money, because we were spending money on our shows, and you could have an audience forever. That was what was very intriguing to me. And so I just got every book on the subject I could. I've always been a sort of a self-learner, right?
Yeah.
And I got myself a Canon XL2
wow.
prosumer camera.
Nice.
I remember that. I learned that term, prosumer.
I mean, people were shooting feature films on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
taught myself, and then I just started making shorts with the actor troupe that I had a theater company with.
Yeah.
And I just sort of learned as I went. According to my bio, my first few short films did really well on the festival circuit, right? So the festivals were a great way for me to discover that there's a community out there of people like me,
Right.
who love films and make films and are passionate about this. And so it was a slow process of me sort of making that transition from a theater producer to a filmmaker. And once I sort of held off on that term filmmaker. I was just, no, I'm making these short films in my free time for fun, right? But really, I'm a theater producer.
When you're doing these shorts, are you producing and directing? What are your roles?
Yeah, I was writing, directing, producing.
Okay.
And I always thought of producing as sort of just because I'm not waiting for permission from someone else
Right.
to make something.
Because I know that you hold the producing field in high esteem. So I wanted to know, like, were you producing other people's? Were you producing your own?
It really, the producing other people's work came after I had made my first feature. So what happened when I finally made the decision, I'm really going to focus. I'm going to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker. When that clicked in my brain and said I am a filmmaker, I moved to LA.
Okay.
Because the best advice I had gotten from a screenwriter, actually, I was trying to figure out at one point, well, can I sell one of these screenplays? That'd be nice, right?
Yeah, right, sure.
And so I went to a seminar, and I forget who the screenwriter was, but it was a guy with a lot of credits. And this was in Chicago. And the one piece of advice he gave everybody, he said, move to LA. What are you doing here in Chicago? You're never going to sell a script here in Chicago. And the question that we all had in the audience was, well, can't you write anywhere? Can't you be anywhere on the planet and write a good script? And, what he said is yes, but that's not what they're buying. They're not buying the script. They're buying you.
Yeah.
And so that made a lot of sense to me. He says, also making it in this business is about the same odds as getting hit by a bus, but you're not going to get hit by a bus unless you're standing in the street. So I moved to LA. And so then I my first feature film sort of came together relatively quickly. I look back on that and realize I had a lot of luck going my way. And a lot of that came from, I had a screenplay that I was initially gonna make this film for the cost of a used car. I'm gonna sell a car, make a movie.
Sure.
Okay. And
Rick Schmidt.
And so I wrote a script that I thought I could do that with, which was 5 people trapped in a room. Okay, this is easy. Then I added one other element, which is, a guy on the phone who's going to explain to them why they're stuck in the room. And I said, if I can get a name actor to do the voiceover, which shouldn't be expensive, right? One day. Okay. All right. And I had a casting director friend who said, okay, let's sit down, come up with your wish list. What are some names? So I gave names for actors whose voices I loved and listed 10 or 12 names, and I wrote them down. And my casting director friend looked at that list. He said, Malcolm McDowell. I said, why? I said, because we can get him. He does indie films. And with me, at the time, I didn't really understand the difference between an actor who does indie films and an actor who doesn't do indie films.
Yeah. You were like, why not Brad Pitt?
Right. Why not?
Well, he doesn't do quite as many.
Yeah. And so I was fortunate enough that Malcolm read the script, loved it, wanted a bigger part. He didn't want to just be a voiceover. He wanted to be in the movie, and he had ideas to expand his role. And so that's how this movie sort of went from being a movie that I was going to fund myself into being a legitimate film. Having Malcolm's involvement brought more people to the table and made it a bigger project.
And this is The Employer.
Yes, came out in 2013. Very proud of that film, but it sort of came together very, very organically. Like I said, I was going to do it on my own. And once you decide you're doing it, right, then the movie's going to happen and you have a moving train. People jump on a moving train. And it was Malcolm's involvement that made it a bigger movie. So after that movie came out, and one of my claims to fame, something I'm very proud of, is it's one of the last movies that got a big deal to be on shelves at Blockbuster.
Oh, congrats.
It was, I remember walking, we sold it was like an 80,000 DVD deal.
Okay.
To go on, you'd get a whole, like a whole wall, like one column of shell, there'd be like 30 copies in each Blockbuster. I remember that day of walking into my local Blockbuster and seeing my movie, a wallet. And it was like, it brought back my childhood, those making a Blockbuster night.
Yeah.
It was the coolest thing. And about a week later, they announced they were
going under.
And I want to say it wasn't because of my movie.
I'm sure it wasn't.
Just to finish that thought, that's when how I got into producing was my friends who were in the same boat as me started calling me up saying, hey, you did it, man. I saw your movie at Blockbuster. You know, like I wanted to, like, what's the secret sauce?
Yeah.
Teach me.
Right.
And there was nothing to teach. You just have to do it. You have to say you're making the movie, and then the pieces start to fall into place. And so what I said is, yeah, if you come to me with a script that I believe in, I'll help.
Right.
And just give me a producer credit.
Right.
Because that's what producing, if you think, like, it's the hardest position on a movie to explain. Every other position, you know what that person does.
Right.
You know, the caterer, you know what he does.
It's also a very, you know, a lot of people misuse the
Yes.
word producer.
So, well, it's very common on a film to see 30, 40, 50 names as producer, because everybody does something different to get that producer credit. Maybe you were putting some money in, right? Or maybe you did a favor.
Yeah, I have buddies who have producer credits that they literally just initiated the handshake between said actor and said director, and they get a producer credit.
This is why I really like being in the Producers Guild, is because if you see those letters PGA on a movie, it doesn't mean that's a member of the guild. It means the guild has vetted that person and has determined that that person actually produced the movie.
Yeah.
And I
produced that movie, or produced every movie that they're on?
That particular movie. So the way it works is it's called a preponderance of the producing.
Okay.
All right. So let's say there's 30 credited producers. You see this all the time. There's
all the time.
Many credited producers. Well, if your movie's going to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, who gets to go up and actually collect an Oscar, right? Who actually produced that movie?
Sure.
Well, that's what the Producers Guild does. If you want to get that PGA, those letters after your name, they will independently vet the project. And the way they do that is just by contacting random crew members.
Oh.
And they will say, well, who did what?
Right.
Who did what on this movie?
Did you ever see this person on set?
Right, right. That kind of thing.
Right.
And they have an arbitration committee, and then they determine who actually produced the movie. And that's what that PGA.
That's lovely.
That's what those letters mean. Yeah.
I wish only those people were called producers. Well, that's interesting. I'm curious. You mentioned a casting agent. Was this just somebody that happened to be a friend, or did you meet them because they were a casting agent?
We had been friends in Chicago.
Okay.
And when he was doing casting for theater. Okay. And he had moved to LA before a couple of years before I did, and to go into film casting.
Okay.
Yeah. But we had known each other through the theater circuit in Chicago. Yeah.
Right. Were there any films that inspired you as you were kind of transitioning into filmmaking? Was there something that you saw that you thought, oh, that's filmmaking?
This is going to sound like a very obvious answer to say The Godfather.
No, it's great.
But I had watched The Godfather on DVD and was so charmed by it that I remember watched them as soon as it ended. I had to start it again with the commentary track.
Right.
But it's one thing I miss about DVDs are those commentary tracks.
We were just talking about this.
And again, remember when I said I didn't think I could be a filmmaker because it's special people. Listening to Francis Ford Coppola talk about The Godfather, I'm like, he's just a guy. And he was making this commentary track, 30 years later.
Right.
And so it was very nostalgic for him. He says, oh, there's my uncle in that one shot. It brought it down to the real world. And he also talked about the struggles he had as a young filmmaker, where the studio didn't believe in him, didn't believe in this project, that he had to fight for everything. He had to fight to keep Pacino in the movie.
Yep.
He had to fight to get Marlon Brando in
everything.
The movie.
Yeah.
And he talks about, how he was almost fired several times, and how there were suits, breathing down his neck throughout. And just hearing that story just really, it reminded me of myself. And I said, Josh, I think I can do that. Now, I haven't yet made The Godfather, but...
Well, he didn't make The Godfather right away either. He made various films before that.
That's right. But commentary tracks, and then I got really into commentary tracks for a while.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't love a movie, I would listen to the commentary
I'm still
track.
into them.
Yeah. They can be a better education than film school.
Absolutely.
Frankly.
So, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but one of my favorite Francis Coppola quotes is he said something like, I'm not really actually talented at anything in particular. I just try really hard. So if it's writing, I just try and I try and I try. And that's something that anybody can identify with.
I love that.
Yeah. So today we're talking about a film that I hold very dear to my heart, and I was so happy that you picked it. I was so happy that Colin put it on the list. Red Rock West, directed by John Dahl from 1993.
Michael, wait! Mike, why'd you tell him about your leg?
You'd have found out sooner or later.
So what? By then you'd have had the job.
That wouldn't be right.
Mike. Hey, man, I'm really sorry about this.
Don't worry about it, Jim. It's not your fault.
So now what are you gonna do?
I don't know. Maybe I'll rob a bank.
He was a film that was produced by an outfit named Propaganda Films. You guys probably heard of these characters, I would imagine. What do you think of when you think of Propaganda Films, Frank?
You're going to have to educate me on them.
Oh, okay. So, well, the two producers who are listed, you may not know right away. Steve Golan and Sigurjón Sigvatsson, who I think went by Yanni Sigvatsson. So these guys started this thing, Propaganda Films. They made commercials, they made music videos, and they employed certain directors earlier in their career that you may have heard of. Michael Bay, David Fincher, Antoine Fuqua, Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry. And so this was one of their smaller projects when they were in full bloom. They're blowing up. They're making tons of money, making, I don't know, George Michael videos and Nike ads. And this is back when those things paid a lot. They make this little movie with this guy named John Dahl, who only had one other film to his credit. And they shoot it from December 2nd, 1991 to January 24th, 1992. It's around 53 days on a budget. Get this, guys, low budget. $7 million, which who knows what that translates into in 2024 or 25. I would like to actually talk about the plot just really quick, if that's okay with you guys. And
drop a synopsis on us.
It's going to be a very, very brief description. Michael Williams, Nic Cage, is a broke, wounded Marine vet who wanders into a small-town Wyoming bar to be mistaken by bar owner Wayne Brown, J.T. Walsh, as a hired killer from Texas named Lyle. When he agrees to kill Wayne's wife, played by Lara Flynn Boyle, Michael then doubles the amount when the wife he's supposed to kill pays him to double-cross her husband and kill him instead. But that's just the beginning, because the true hired killer, Lyle from Dallas, played by Dennis Hopper, shows up and things get really interesting. How is Michael going to survive the mess he's gotten himself into? What'd you guys think of Red Rock West, Frank?
I love this movie.
Me too.
And that description does such a disservice to the movie.
What do you mean?
Because it makes Nicolas Cage's character sound like a bad guy. Well, and what I love about this movie is, and it feels very much like an old-fashioned Western in the best sense, is the moral compass of this guy. He's not perfect. He's not a total white hat.
Yes.
But you understand where his line is drawn all the time.
We actually are very clearly shown at the beginning of the film two instances where he could have done something that was less than completely honest, and he doesn't do it. And so it is made extremely clear that Nic Cage is an up and up, all around good guy. And so when he actually falls into this game of being hired because he's mistaken as a killer, he does so at first unwittingly, and then he kind of goes along with it because there's so much money and he is so desperate. But he doesn't intend to kill anybody. He's just going to tell the sheriff what's going on of the town by writing a letter and telling him exactly what's going on and taking off with the money. And the one time that he is dishonest is what gets him into a whole lot of horse doo-doo.
I thought you were supposed to be here last Friday. I was beginning to think I'd have to find somebody else. You are here for the job, aren't you?
You must be Wayne.
Yes. And you're Lyle from Dallas, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's sort of fair to say. Although I guess I found myself doing that thought experiment after having seen the film. I also really, really appreciated this one, but I was trying to kind of come to terms with, does he ever veer off that virtuous path? And if he does, is he just flirting with being kind of slightly immoral, or does he actually fully commit? I don't think the movie really answers that question for us, but I think it's fair to say, to Frank's point, that he's got this. He is this kind of a symbol of virtue, and then there's that scene that you're describing earlier in the film. I mean, there's an open cash register staring him in the face, and maybe he thinks about it, but he doesn't go through. And in a way, and I'm really jumping the gun here, the film does eventually reward him for that.
Absolutely.
With a little kiss, you know.
Well, and I mean, I think the film also, quote unquote, teaches him a lesson about veering from his own true character.
Sure.
What you've reminded me of my favorite line of dialogue in the movie is when Lara Flynn Boyle is seducing him in the hotel, and he says, "Oh, but you're married," and she says, "Well, marriage is just a state of mind," and he says, "Not in Texas,"
right?
And then she says, "But we're not in Texas,"
right?
And that sort of gives him permission to go for it. I feel like that's how strict his moral code is.
Yeah. I mean, that's to Colin's point, that's the one other time that I think that he veers from his moral code. And what does that do? I mean, the moment he gets involved with Lara Flynn Boyle, things get worse and worse. I mean, he's already on a downward spiral, but he's able to get away. He could have left. He could have left town at that point and been fine.
Well, I get that he's just this actually nice guy who is tricked by her. She's honeypotting him. She's the femme fatale. She's manipulating him. I think the audience knows that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't.
Right.
Because he's a simple guy.
Right. I mean, I don't know if anybody goes into the film thinking this is film noir. She is the femme fatale trope. But I mean, it becomes very abundantly clear at a certain point that he may be in serious trouble.
Well, very early. I mean, when he comes to her to warn her that her husband wants to kill her, immediatly she says, "I'll double it if you kill him."
Right.
So we know she's not.
Questionable.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you liked the fact that this is a movie about a character we can all get behind. He's a virtuous guy. How did you feel about the choices that Nic Cage's character makes in the film?
I am such a Nicolas Cage apologist. I will. Any choice he makes in any movie is the right choice.
You're talking about acting choices.
Acting choices.
I'm talking about character choices.
Oh, you're talking about the character.
But you can talk about acting choices. Let's do that too.
Let's talk about acting. Let's talk about Nicolas Cage for a second, because he's the reason why you gave me a list of movies I hadn't seen. We had narrowed it down to 90s action thrillers, right? And I said, there's a movie from 93 with Nicolas Cage and Dennis Hopper that I haven't seen. And I don't know that I had ever heard of it, other than it may have been on a trailer.
A lot of people haven't heard of this movie.
And so I was very intrigued. And this is really on the more muted side for Nicolas Cage.
Absolutely.
It's a very grounded performance in a movie that is just, some of the plot twists in this movie are hard to believe. You have to believe that, he's leaving town, that, he accidentally hits the guy who's just been shot as he's rolling down the embankment, just as Lyle from Dallas arrives. There's a lot of things you have. If his performance had been an over-the-top big Nicolas Cage performance, I think this movie would have gone off the rails. He's very believable. He's very grounded. There's just like one or two moments of full Nic Cage.
Full Cage.
F Mexico. Yes.
Yeah. We can find it, Michael. We can be together. We can go to Mexico.
Fuck Mexico!
Right. And Dennis Hopper too. It feels like the reins are pulled back a little bit.
Yeah, he's not full Frank Booth.
Yeah. So, and I credit the director with that he understood the tone he was going for with this film.
He did. He talks about how he had to work with Cage, because Cage did go bigger at certain times, and he said, "No, do less, do less, do less." And then eventually Cage said something like, "Oh, so I'm Clint Eastwood in this movie?" And he said, "Yes, exactly." And he said, "Okay, I get it."
That's great.
And then he started playing it more low key.
Because there are some of those Cage rage moments in this, but the thing is, when those moments happen, it kind of took me out of the film. But I realized, as they're happening, it's not the film's fault. It's me bringing my Nic Cage baggage, which I love Nic Cage, but it was me bringing my prior baggage from some of these roles that he's done where he can't or was never instructed to rein it in, and that's me bringing that to the film. That's not the filmmaker or the film's problem.
Yeah, I tend to like Cage's choices in general. I don't have a problem with him going big. I don't have a problem with him. He's said himself essentially that he learned a lot from silent films, and that he loves silent films, and that so his acting has a kind of pantomime quality. It's an over the top, bigger than life more expressionistic and formal than it is realistic or, based in some kind of, let's try to be real, quote unquote. He's going for effect. And for me, I think that's what a lot of film acting is all about. And so I tend to love his choices. And I think he's a great mix of what he can do when he goes really large in movies. But mostly he's playing it very low key here. And I would like to see him play more average guys who are down on their luck. I would love to see a whole series of films that are just, film noir with Nic Cage in the lead role. I think he's fantastic in this. The lead was offered to Chris Christopherson upon recommendation by Dennis Hopper. Christopherson turned it down. He was too busy. But that was an interesting fact I looked up. And Cage took part in the audition, like where he went in and was interested in meeting Dahl when they contacted him, because Francis Ford Coppola, Cage's uncle, who we were talking about earlier with Godfather, was a fan of Dahl's debut film, Kill Me Again, 1989, which I want to do on this show. And he told them, my uncle says you're a very good director. So that's great. That would be an endorsement that I'd listen to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nicolas Cage got the role. Then they were trying to cast other roles like Lyle from Dallas and also Kevin McCord / Sheriff Wayne Brown. And they sent it to Dennis Hopper with the idea that he would play the Sheriff Wayne Brown, Kevin McCord role. And Hopper read the script and thought, I want to do Lyle from Dallas.
Yeah.
And John Dahl said, well, Blue Velvet, Frank Booth, we've seen you do that. It's a little too close for me. But Hopper kept kind of chipping at him. He would call him from Sweden when he was at some film festival, and he would say, I really want to do Lyle from Dallas. I really want to do Lyle from Dallas. So eventually, it's Dennis Hopper. He's one of the biggest names you have in your movie. Said, look, this guy really wants to do this role. We better just let him have it. So they let him have it. And then he said he knew this actor, J.T. Walsh. And he said, well, we just slid him into Kevin McCord, Sheriff Wayne Brown. And guys, I can't tell you how much I love J.T. Walsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a Walsh head for sure.
Not a false note on that guy. Like, just nails it every time.
And a guy that really, it was nice. It was refreshing to see him get to play a bad guy for once. No, a parallel I was kind of drawing in my mind to his role here was his role in Breakdown, which is obviously much more cartoonish, and it's a bigger, more villainous role. But Walsh sells it so effortlessly. He kind of just slides into whatever he's provided, and he's always been a master of the craft.
You never see him sweat.
No.
Do you like J.T. Walsh?
Very much so. And that casting was correct. Dennis Hopper was correct.
Yes.
If when an actor likes a role, like sometimes they want the bigger role, or maybe the financing people want to put someone's name on the poster. Lyle from Dallas doesn't show up till probably halfway through the movie. 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes in.
Yeah.
So, and then he disappears for a little while, right? There's one scene where I wondered if it was a coverage issue, and it's a phone call where Dennis Hopper's side, we don't cut to him. He says, I've been asleep for the last couple hours. And right? It's just JT. And that's the kind of thing as a filmmaker, when you see just one side of a phone call, when there's no reason not to see the other side of the phone call, you wonder if they they couldn't schedule that scene. So
didn't bother me at all.
So they did it in post.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think these things with a name actor like that in a low budget movie, which it was, right?
Yeah.
You only get probably so many days with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, if you can have one less day with him on set by making that a voiceover, do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lyle's character was named after Lyle guitar, the first guitar that John Dahl ever owned.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So J.T. Walsh, I don't know. He's an acting powerhouse, incredible as a multifaceted con man. It was his idea when they get to the sheriff's office, the police station rather, to slowly reveal who he was with the brim of his hat. He walks in, his head's down. You don't see that it's him until that reveal when he looks up and you see Cage's face like, what is going on in this town?
Well, see, when you hear stories like that, it tells me, first of all, I know that this is a good director, right? But it tells me you had the right kind of environment on set.
Yes.
To where actors have that ability.
They can contribute.
Yes. What if I came in and do this? And a wise director needs to have control, needs to be the captain of the boat because the boat needs a captain. But a wise director can take that input.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's going to make it better, go for it.
They listen.
Yeah.
There are a couple of instances of that I'll talk about, but yeah, that's one of them. Unfortunately, J.T. Walsh died of a heart attack very young. He was 54, died in 1998, lost one of the greats that day. As you mentioned, Dennis Hopper's great as Lyle from Dallas. I just, the relish that he takes in playing this crazed, ex-Marine, ex-Vietnam killer is wonderful. And they talked about, I watched an interview with the co-writer, Rick Dahl, who's John Dahl's brother, and he said that it was Dennis's idea when he's lighting the house on fire to distract the cops. It was his idea to drink from the bottle and do a little dance and all that stuff. It's all Dennis. He really relishes playing somebody who is both a little insane, but also insecure. He keeps saying things like, well, you don't want to drink with me?
Yeah.
Think you're too good? It's great. It gives the character a great angle opposite our Michael Williams, played by Nic Cage. What do you think of Lara Flynn Boyle, Frank?
It was great. I mean, I thought I didn't trust her as far as I could throw her. The character.
You could probably throw her pretty far.
Well, I think that you do know very early on what this movie is. This movie is it felt so classic in its film noir niche, right? It's a modern Western, yes, but the pacing of the film right away, it felt like I was watching Double Indemnity. And right away he walks into this bar. Everything is measured. He walks into the bar, he sits down, the bartender comes over, hits his mark, so we get this beautiful shot. Like there's things that this wasn't feeling like a 1992 movie. This was feeling like a 1942 movie. And so as soon as we meet her, and again, he walks in, she comes into her house, he's already there, but there's the framing, there's this wide shot, and Nic Cage is in the background of the shot in a chair, right? And she's in the foreground of the shot. This is reminding me of film noir right away. The way she's dressed, her hair. And so that's why I go, she's the femme fatale.
Sure.
And so even before she says, when she says, I'll double the money, you kill my husband, I go, oh, okay. I sort of know where this is going, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Right. What'd you think, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This is kind of a movie that I have to appreciate for actually helping Lara Flynn Boyle click for me a little bit better, because you see her in other roles and she can be a little bit subdued. I'm as big a Twin Peaks fan as the rest, but there's always been a subtlety to her performances that was not convincing enough. That didn't convince me of her charisma enough. But it's in this role that you can see there's like an undercurrent, like there's like an electricity.
Yeah.
There's like a spark there, but it's really subtle. And this is a role that like gives you a chance to explore that a little bit. And it gives her a chance to show off some different chops. I mean, she's not just pure femme fatale mode. It's also, she gets to flex some comedic chops here and some other things. So no, this kind of opened her up for me a little bit.
Which way's the nearest town?
Medicine Bow's about 40 miles that way.
Is there a sheriff there?
Yes. You're not thinking about going to the police, are you?
Yeah, I want to get this goddamn mess cleaned up before anyone else gets hurt.
What are you going to tell them?
The truth.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I'm sure about that.
Okay. How are you going to explain impersonating a hired killer and taking $10,000 from my husband, the sheriff?
Okay, what do you suggest?
I suggest we get as far away from here as possible.
And that's it, you're just gonna leave?
Yeah. What the hell do I have that's worth coming back for?
Yeah, I found it completely convincing. I think I agree with you. I think this might have been one of the best performances I've ever seen of hers. And I think she might look the best she's ever looked. For some reason, I just think that the way they dressed her hair, everything that they were doing with her on set just looked fantastic, and found her to be a wonderful femme fatale. Somebody else that I think we should talk about is, you guys remember the truck driver?
Oh yeah.
Who is that guy? Anybody know?
Is it Dwight Yoakam?
It's Dwight Yoakam.
Sure is. Brought his own gun and everything.
Yeah. So apparently, Dwight's at the height of his country stardom, and somehow he meets John Dahl. I know John Dahl did some music videos, so they might have met that way. I'm not sure. or maybe at a party because of the connection to the music industry. Anyway, a lot of the lines, because the role was much smaller initially, but a lot of the lines Dwight came up with himself, like the that's an involuntary response to bullshit line and things like that. These are things, he brought his own gun when he had a gun. That's his gun.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a country superstar. So I was listening to Rick Dahl, again, John Dahl's brother, talk about how he gets to Arizona and he's like Elvis. Like people are just freaking out. Like, Mr. Yoakum, could you, yeah, I'll sign your hat. No problem. You know, just a super nice guy and loved his fans. But he was huge. And he wrote the song that ends the movie, 1,000 Miles from Nowhere.
Sure.
While he's working on the film.
It's an earworm for sure.
And that became a hit.
That's such a cool story. Had a lot of nostalgia. I might have had a tear in my eye when the movie ended with that song because I lost my mom not too long ago. And my mom loved that song. Oh. I would come home from school. That song would be on for, there was a good chunk of time when she was a huge Dwight Yoakam fan.
Oh, wow.
And man, I hadn't heard that song in years.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
then, but I knew he was in the movie but I didn't know that song was coming. And so when the credits start rolling, I go, oh, that's my mom's song.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that'll put an exclamation point on a viewing experience for sure.
Yeah.
That's so nice to hear. Did you guys like any of the other characters or anything you want to say about Dwight?
Well, Dwight, yeah, I would love to have been a fly on the wall as Dahl was kind of like throwing wild lines out, for the screenplay. And maybe that is that latitude that the director gave his performers to work with it that Frank was describing. But I mean, yeah, he's got that whole conversation about married life with Dwight is almost perfect. And lines like, "Does that tickle? Because it won't if I pull the trigger."
Right,
stuff like that.
Right.
It's really good stuff.
The scene also is just it goes back to what we were saying about Cage and me being a Cage apologist and how great he is. He has a natural, as a lot of A-listers, has a natural likability.
Yes.
You see this guy and you want to have a drink with him.
You want to empathize.
And he's just very good at it because he's open. Maybe it's his face, right? But there's just something about him where, Dwight Yoakam puts a gun in his face because this guy's been on top of his truck
right.
and he wants to know what's going on here. And Cage very calmly just says, "Oh, I was trying to get away from my old lady." Dwight Yoakam doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
And yet within the 2 minutes of this conversation, he's giving him a ride.
Yeah. He's like, "You're lying to me."
And the same thing happens when we first meet Dennis Hopper, right? He says, if I hadn't just fixed my brakes,
I'd be cleaning you out of the radiator or whatever.
As he says, and he doesn't trust him. "What are you doing here?" He says, "My car broke down." "Well, I don't see a car." So, and again, it's sort of the same structure where I don't believe you, but I like you.
Yeah, right.
He says, and then Nicolas Cage is like, "Can I have a ride?" He always needs a ride from someone.
It's funny. It's as though these people who hear Cage's lies can tell, well, he's not telling the truth, but he's not a bad guy.
That's right. That's right.
Like they're reading underneath the lies. What did you guys think of the deputy Matt Graytack? He's the kind of floppy 90s hair guy who's the deputy who starts discovering that something's wrong with Wayne.
I mean, Timothy Carhart is recognizable from a mile away. He is one of those guys.
What stuff do you? Because he does look familiar, but I can't place him exactly.
He's been in Ghostbusters. He was in Witness. Oh. He was in a major scene in Thelma and Louise.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
So he's been around, and he continues. I mean, he works his ass off, and he continues to. So kudos to him.
Yeah.
But he's never had like a kind of a breakout starring role. But he's great. He's in The Hunt for Red October.
Oh wow.
So he's kind of everywhere. He's sprinkled into every little project here and there.
My take on him is I think about how you cast the right person in the right role, and I was talking about Nicolas Cage's face, and this guy's face. There was just something about it. You said the floppy hair. Maybe that was part of it. But when I first, and again, I knew I was watching film noir. I knew I was watching neo-noir, and there's rules to the screenwriting. You sort of, there are flags that get planted along the way that you sort of know where the story's going. And I sort of think it's a good thing. It's part of the comfort of these kind of movies to sort of know where there's going to be some twists along the way. But when I first met that character, I go, he's going to end up being the good guy who figures something out about the bad guy. Because by that point in the story, we have people double crossing each other. And when I meet this deputy, I just went, he's going to save the day. I just sort of had this sense from him.
That's interesting because when I look at him, I think this guy's going to be annoying me later, and I don't. He's going to say something about somebody, or something's going to bother me about this guy.
And did he?
No, he winds up, like you said, he winds up being the good guy. He winds up, and not only that, like when they find the money in Nicolas Cage's car, they don't immediately just pocket it or whatever. They're like, "Look at this! Look at what we found." So then they start investigating what's going on, and they get the bill of the sheriff, and that's not his real name, the wanted poster rather, from the FBI. So,
and the scene later when he's coming in to arrest the mayor, right? So it's like he has the letter. I mean, he's the sheriff. The sheriff. Mm-hmm. So he's arresting the sheriff, and think about the power dynamic there.
Yeah.
Right.
His
but
boss.
It's his boss. He's coming to arrest his boss, but he's very calm.
Yeah.
Him and his buddy, they just walk in and the sheriff says, "Are you here to arrest me?" He says, "Well, it's sort of looking that way."
Yeah, and he keeps saying his name. Yeah, he's like, "It's sort of looking that way, isn't it, Wayne?" Kind of fun.
I love how, speaking of Wayne, I just love the latitude with which Lyle employs the name Wayner.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah.
You're right. I noticed it on this last watch. I was like, "Oh, he keeps saying Wayner. That's funny."
Yeah, that feels like a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I also liked, just to go into character actors a little bit, this guy had no lines, I think, but the caretaker in the cemetery toward the end, there's just, this old guy. I thought he had a great face. His name's Robert Beecher.
Well, I'm pretty sure he says that sounded like a gunshot.
Yeah.
Does he say that or his wife? Okay. Okay.
But, in terms of other kind of standout bit roles, the older gentleman who runs the gas station at the beginning, who's kind of going back and forth about his military kudos, or his military bona fides.
Right. They don't make cars like that anymore.
Now, tell me, what is the movie telling us about Nicolas Cage? The film opens with him. He's waking up from sleeping in his car. They give you a glimpse of his jacked up knee. And then he proceeds to do some Jack LaLanne one-handed push-ups.
One-handed.
Now, and maybe they're just trying, maybe that's a contrast to paint him as a Boy Scout at first, because I can tell you what, if you're going to do the Jack LaLanne one-handed push-ups, and yet you feel like you're going to have to relent on telling a potential first employer about your knee injury. Mm-hmm. I feel like you can handle the job, Nick. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't his decision. He felt he could handle the job, but he was an honest enough guy that he's going to fill out this paperwork.
Exactly.
And they're going to ask, is there any injuries we need to know about? And he tells the truth. And then his buddy's like, why'd you have to tell the truth? This is what I do, is I tell the truth.
And he says he would have found out anyway.
The very impressive push-ups on the side of the road. I just got that as a guy who's been on the road for a long time, and he's getting a little bit of stretch in before getting back on the road for another stretch.
He's starting his day. And keep in mind, they started shooting this in December of 1991. So it's actually cold out there in the desert early in the morning. So Nicolas Cage has his shirt off, doing his one-arm push-ups, and he's freezing a little bit.
Yeah, in his boots, no less.
In his boots, yeah.
Yeah, I got it as a guy who's down on his luck.
Sure.
This is a guy, living in his car, and to have to go to, and we find out pretty early on, he's going from Texas to, is it Wyoming?
Wyoming is where it takes place.
And because he had a lead for a job, and then it's supposed to be on an oil rig, right? Oil drill, right? So not a glamorous job, and he doesn't get it. And he's really, really down on his luck when he walks into that bar and is offered the $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the moment of temptation where he relents just a little bit, just enough to throw himself into a downward spiral.
Well, no. So had we heard his name was Michael up to that point, or do we hear his name the first time in prison? Because at that point, I thought he was there to do the contracted job. And so maybe that's just me. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention.
I thought maybe he had revealed his name when he was at the oil drilling site, but I'm not sure. I think his friend might have called him Michael or something.
Okay, I guess so. So maybe a better question would be then to ask: did you guys, when upon your first viewing, when he walked in that bar, was there a part of you that thought, "Oh yeah, he's here for this job," or this was job be. Maybe like maybe the drilling job, because the impression I got was he went there to do a drilling job because he didn't have the stomach to do this other violent job.
Oh, wow.
But then when fate, robbed him of his chance to do the virtuous thing, then he doubled back on his whatever. And then, obviously it's revealed that that's not who he is.
I didn't get that impression at all. I think one of the reasons is because when he's looking down and drinking his coffee that he has bought with the last 5 cents or whatever he has, the JT Walsh character stares at him and he kind of slowly looks up at him like, can I help you? What do you want? Like he doesn't know what the guy's talking about. And I immediately thought, oh, there's a mistaken identity happening here. This is, which is also, I think, a trope of film noir.
Sure.
So,
and for me, it was, and that's one of the funnier moments for me is it's the license plate, right?
Yeah.
So we see the Texas license plate
Right.
outside. It just happens. It has to be parked exactly where it is,
Right.
so that JT Walsh can look out the front door,
Sure.
which is propped open.
Sure.
And so that we can get that license plate, which sets the entire rest of the plot in motion.
Which actually, if you think about it, it's kind of a weird angle anyway.
Yes.
Even where it's because it's parked this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he would have to look around the door jam to see the front license plate.
That's one of those movie things.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
But also, mistaken identity is such a common trope in film noir. And that's why I didn't think he was Lyle from Texas.
So this movie was primarily shot in a town called Wilcox, Arizona, and then other parts around Arizona. It was shot in Texas Canyon, Arizona, Canelo, Sonoita, Dragoon, Elgin, and Bisbee International Airport. Then they also shot the exterior of the ranch house in San Diego. The interior was created on a soundstage. They were going to shoot the graveyard at the end in Wilcox, but then apparently the weather was really unpleasant there. So they shot that at the Santa Monica airport in a hangar.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that felt like a set to me. So that's
It is, yeah.
interesting. Okay.
I didn't guess that when I first, it didn't occur to me, but they said, they had to drill into the concrete so that Nic Cage could unearth that box of money.
Interesting.
And then they shot a little bit in Piru, California to connect the cemetery to the train. The caretaker's house was in Stevenson Ranch here near LA. And then the last shot of the movie of the train leaving, which has 10,000 Miles from Nowhere playing over it, is shot in Moise, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, Moiese, Montana, months after Wrap. He couldn't get that shot in Arizona the way he wanted, so they shot it there.
Okay.
But I really loved the locations of this movie. It really does feel like a modern, Western noir. It feels lived in, it feels real, and yet completely photogenic, beautifully shot by the DP.
Well, and also the choices that they make surrounding those locations. I'm thinking particularly about the sign for Red Rock that they keep. You see that maybe 3 or 4 times. And it's just this kind of comedic little irony that he just, every time he's kind of dragged back into town, that's just staring him in the face. And I thought that was, kind of I appreciated that little detail that they threw in there.
Totally. And there's a sign at the beginning. What does it say? I think, does it say Red Rock? It's like an interstate sign, and it has bullet holes in it.
Yeah.
Just kind of a foreshadowing of things to come. Yeah, I loved the way that this was shot by Mark Rashevsky. Bright colors, smoke, dust, really moody feel for the land. It had its own unique feel.
Actually, that was a Wyoming sign.
Wyoming,
Yes.
That's it. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. So I love the fact that they just paid a lot of attention to these details.
Absolutely.
You had said it was a 50-some day shoot, which, that to me, that sounds
That's a
like
luxury,
Yeah,
right?
that's a luxury on a low-budget movie. But that's what you get with 50 days. You get to move around. You get to shoot out. You get the perfect locations.
Right.
Right. And this was interesting because it was a mix of practical locations.
Yes.
Out on set.
Yes.
Probably in a real bar, real ranch house, like you said. And then set.
The ranch house exterior was real, but the interior was a set.
And I believe it because it was gorgeous. It's perfect. And it was like when you see a house that perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that bit of blocking where he's in the
Yes.
chair. I mean, you can't achieve that in just a day's worth of specking out a house. So,
But the cemetery did feel like a set to me as well. That's when they got to that set, and it almost now that I hear it was shot in a hangar, And it felt deliberate to me. Why wouldn't it be deliberate? I mean, the production design was, all the choices are so carefully done that I couldn't help but when we get to that cemetery set and it just felt a little bit like a movie cemetery versus a real one, I couldn't help but think that was a little nod to the genre. That again, it's a neo-noir.
Yeah.
And it felt like a movie from the 40s in many ways. And that is a cemetery from a movie from the 40s.
You mentioned Double Indemnity earlier, Billy Wilder's famous film noir. And that is a film that Dahl talked about as being an inspiration and something. I think he said that when he went to AFI, they showed him that film. And it stuck with him in part because his father worked in insurance. And if you haven't seen Double Indemnity, guys, please go check it out. It's a wonderful, so many Billy Wilder films are, but that is an incredible film noir. And it is fun to see how they married a lot of the older 40s film tropes with this kind of contemporary 90-something vibe and created a neo-noir and something that had its own voice. Like doesn't feel like any other noir that I've seen. Does it feel like any other that you guys have seen?
This is a very original, very different movie, which is why I loved it so much. And I've heard the director talk a little bit about how he got to make the movie that he wanted to make. And that's so neat. That somebody, gave him $7 million and 50 days to make the movie he wants to make. And that's for better or worse, right? Because it wasn't a hit film. No. They didn't know quite how to market it.
They didn't put it in theaters either. We'll talk about that in a moment.
But then I read somewhere that it was on several critics' top 10 lists of the year.
Absolutely was.
And so to me, that's the mark of a great film, is one that people are either going to love or hate.
Yeah.
And not a movie that plays anything safe. Because this is very, like I said, it's so original. It has modern Western vibes to it.
Yeah.
It has the film noir. It has that snappy dialogue. It has all these plot twists, but it's also very, like I said before, deliberately paced.
Right.
Even the action scenes are a little more. The camera just steps back a little bit and lets them happen.
Right.
As opposed to
cut.
Yeah. As opposed to cut or ways of making it more exciting. That this is a character driven movie. It's so beautifully cast and allowing all these actors to put their own stamps on these characters.
Yeah, and it's a movie that gives people latitude to make some esoteric choices, which helps certain moments stand out. So, for instance, there are some kind of tropey moments. So Lyle goes into the police station and shoots the policeman. That's coming. But then he picks up his sandwich and he goes, "Turkey, my favorite." Which that's like that's just this little detail that takes that moment from being kind of a trope and puts its own mustard on it, I guess.
Yeah, and actually what I also love about that moment is it tells us so much about J.T. Walsh's character.
Sure.
Because Lyle pulls out the gun, blows the guy away, and J.T. Walsh yells, "No!"
Yeah.
He doesn't want him to kill him. He doesn't.
He's not a murderer. He's a fraud.
He's not a murderer. He's a con man. Yeah. And also he knows this is just going to bring up so much more heat. So it's a mixture of probably morality. So he's not completely a dark character. He's not a good character, obviously. There are degrees. There are lines that J.T. Walsh even won't cross.
Right.
Even at the end when Lyle wants to kill Lara Flynn Boyle and Nic Cage, he says, "No, wait, why don't we just let him go? Just let him go." And why would his wife double-crossed him, tried to have him killed? Just let him go.
I remember I just had this memory of my British literature teacher in high school, junior year of high school, and we were studying Charles Dickens. And what we did is we, as an exercise, took a Charles Dickens novel and listed out all the characters and then my teacher had each of us rank the characters in their morality from best character to worst character. And each of us did it separately. Right. Then we turned it in. And then what the exercise showed is everyone in the class got it almost exactly the same. Interesting. And the takeaway from that was Charles Dickens had so clearly designated who's good, who's bad, and who's somewhere in between that every person who reads a Charles Dickens book can rank these characters almost the same way.
Right.
And it's the same thing
He communicated very clearly to the reader.
Yes, and so that's why I said the level of morality of Nicolas Cage's character versus J.T. Walsh.
Yeah, versus Lyle.
Yes.
Lyle is, yeah.
And to go back to that moment where Lyle shoots the cop, this, if I'm remembering correctly, this is coming out of the cop making several phone calls to volunteer firemen.
Yes, exactly.
And so that scene goes on like a little too long, right? There's like he makes like 5 or 6 phone calls.
Yeah.
When he like repeats the same
He's
line.
repeating
Yeah.
the same thing, which it almost becomes absurd to us.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's doing this great service for the community.
Yep. Yeah, we need some help. Yeah? I'll be right with you. Yeah. Well, everyone else is already on the way. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye. Can I help you?
Jesus, no!
And to me, that's what makes this moment work of
Sure,
when Lyle pulls out the gun and JT yells, "No, don't do it."
Right.
It's because we don't get to know this character very well of the cop who's making those phone calls. But the one thing we do see him doing is he's doing the service for the community.
He's doing a good job.
He's calling the volunteer firemen,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, we got a fire. You know what to do." He hangs up. "Hey, we got a fire.
Yeah.
You know what to do." And so we like this character. We don't want him to get his face blown off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you guys were mentioning like, so the elements of other noir films. I mean, I get a little bit of Robert Meacham kind of in the Lyle performance, but really, I mean, it's pretty singular and it's just fleshed out by so many of those juicy lines. I mean, what is the line in the bar about pissing on the toilet seat? Can you remind me of that?
Oh, yeah. I wondered actually if Hopper had ad-libbed that.
What does he say?
He says it's bad luck.
He says
don't piss on the toilet seat, even if somebody else has.
Yeah, even
It's
if
bad luck.
if they did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I gotta use the head and I'll be right back.
Yeah, well, don't piss on the seat, even if they did.
It's not lucky.
And it's like his delivery and like the way he looks, he sizes up the room while he's doing it, and that's pretty singular.
But the one thing that is sort of not fully villainous, that it was just a Dennis Hopper choice, is when he first picks up Nicolas Cage and they find out they're both Marines.
Yeah.
And I forget what battle it is that Nicolas Cage was in, or what.
He was in Lebanon. When a truck exploded.
There was a truck explosion, and Dennis Hopper had heard of that incident. He said, "Oh, you were in that explosion," and like, oh man, and he really takes it in, and he really feels bad for Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And I just, again, as a choice and making these characters as 3-dimensional as possible.
Absolutely.
And then they're bonded after that, right? So then when they get to the bar and he says, "I'm going to buy you a drink," and it's
that is a great moment in the car. When he's like, "I want to buy you a drink." "No, it's okay." "No, really. And he just insists over and over until he gets to that.
He says, I nearly greased your can back there.
Yeah.
Let me buy you a beer," which is a great line too.
Yeah, and it's this running thing with that character, right? Because later as they're driving, near the end of the movie when they're driving to the cemetery, he's got the bottle of whiskey in his hand, right?
Yeah.
And he offers Nicolas Cage a drink. And again, he's like, "Well, you're too good to drink with me?"
Yeah. Too good.
But that's true. And then you guys both mentioned like his, and you're talking about the 3-dimensional aspects of him. I mean, you mentioned this movie also kind of paints him as slightly thin-skinned, which is a kind of a great character choice as well.
In a villain, yeah.
Which is, because I think he wants to share the whiskey with him, and he does, and he says something like, "Oh, I knew a guy like you once, thinks you're so much better than everybody else." And it's like, and you're seeing him being like a little bit petty. It's like he doesn't want to have a fucking drink. You've got a gun to the back of his head,
Hopper is completely petty, and it's funny because he's impaled on that statue toward the end, and he's like, "I'm not done with you." And then Nic Cage turns around and says, "You know what? You're right. I am better than you," or something like that.
Right.
And that's the one thing that happens right before Dennis Hopper has one last throw of trying to kill him, and then of course we see Lara Flynn Boyle shoot him.
And a lesser filmmaker would have ruined that moment by turning him into fucking Jason or Darth Vader or whatever it is, and making him just a pure evil. But no, it's like that pettiness, like is what fleshes him out and makes him interesting.
And
100%.
prior to that moment, another thing I love is when with the double crossing, because remember so after shooting the cop in the jail, is ordered to free JT Walsh and say he makes a deal. He says, "How about for half the money?"
Yeah.
He didn't have to make that deal. Like he could just point a gun to his head and said, "I'm taking all the money." But you talk about the different characters and their morality, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Here's a question: would he? If he hadn't been double crossed by JT Walsh, would he have been a man of his word and taken just half the money? I think he would have. So it's a different, if we're different characters have different moralities.
There's a lot of gray areas.
He will shoot a cop in the face, but if he makes,
but he won't piss on the toilet seat.
But he won't piss on the toilet seat. Because when JT Walsh double crosses him, Lyle from Dallas says, "Oh, I guess we're not partners anymore," right? And then because the guy has a gun on him, and he says, "Give me the keys, give me the key." Right? They're fighting for the car keys, and there's this really cool moment of suspense where it just feels for Dennis Hopper. He's like really just disappointed in this guy's character that he got double crossed by him. Because I was going to split it with you. I thought we had a deal.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good reading on that moment because I also did give that. I also did buy that. Yeah, maybe he probably would have split this one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to reveal something, and I hope you don't mind because I'm not sure you're right because the original ending had Lyle killing everybody. And that's how it ended. It had a really dark ending. And they showed it to some friends or some people, and they said, "We liked the first 2/3, but the ending is too much. You got to change it." So
right, but I mean, I guess that begs the question of what's the distinction between screenplay and an actor's intentions, and it's kind of like everyone always talks about how Tarantino has his cast, write a novel about their character or whatever it is. I don't know if Dahl did that for Hopper here, but maybe he did, and for all we know.
In this piece, I think it's open. Like you can interpret it, however you think.
I have such a hard time believing that was the original ending.
Yeah,
I have such a hard time because what a terrible movie this would have been. You're saying our hero, our lead,
Lyle gets away with everything. He kills them all.
Our hapless hero, ex-Marine, who only makes a couple little tiny mistakes. Yeah, no, for him to be wiped out. Yeah, no, that's just a bad ending.
I mean, it would have been really tonally inconsistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so how do you guys feel about that ending? I mean, so
I love it.
Lara Flynn Boyle ends up on a boxcar.
Yes.
Which is talk about film noir. They end up in a boxcar, and there's this kind of double cross that you know it's coming. But I mean, for me,
well, she double crosses her husband right there in the cemetery, right?
Sure.
He gets stabbed in the neck, and she doesn't even help him. She just kicks him and takes his keys.
Which, by the way,
holy smokes!
Can we talk about this movie's effective use at flinging objects at people? There's a great knife throw, and there's a great statue throw in this film.
It's good stuff.
I'm a big fan of that. But no, I mean, the decision for him to just kick her off in such a blasé manner, and that perfect look to the camera, that perfect little delivery of shit, and then and then this nice little dollop of cash that's kind of giving him a little kiss on the head. We're sorry. We're sorry we put you through hell.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
I think what I would have done, because I like him throwing the money off the train, right? Because at that point he realizes the money's been the cause of all of this,
of all the problems.
How I would have done it, and they didn't ask me for notes, but I would have had her just leap off to go get the money. Because she doesn't want him, and she doesn't need to get away. She needs the money, right? And but then of course the cops come after her, right away, and her motivation the whole time is the money, right? So it sort of made sense. It would have made sense for me if when he throws the money off the train, that she just goes, "You son of a bitch," and goes after the money.
They didn't know how to end the movie, so they came up with Cage knocking Boyle out of the boxcar, and then when they did that, the pack of bills got stuck in the train door by accident. So they kept it. Nicolas Cage improvised that he grabbed the pack, put it in his shirt. They kept it, but they also shot one without it, which is how they originally intended. So where just all the money went out, because he was supposed to throw away all the money. Yeah. But it just happened that one pack of bills got stuck in the train door when he did it one time.
Oh, thank Christ it did. What a beautiful little accident. Yeah.
So they kept that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's a great ending.
The cemetery finding the money. I didn't pick up on this, but does that remind you of any other famous films where somebody buries money in a cemetery? Does anything come to mind?
Are you talking about Good, Bad, and the Ugly?
That's where they got it from.
Oh, really?
They took it from that. They were such big fans of that film.
Wow.
That they picked it up from that, put it in this. Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Well, and there's similar movies in the where the greed, right, and the double crossing. That's the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the ultimate example of that, of what people will do for cash.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, to your point, Frank, you were talking about he got to do what he wanted to do. He got to tell the story he wanted to tell. There were elements trying to mess with that, of course. There was a development exec that wanted to know more about who Nic Cage was. We need to know more about his background. We need to know. John and Rick didn't think they needed to know anymore. So luckily they got around that. Then they had John Dahl shoot a different ending where he found money in his car at the end. They actually did shoot it. But for some reason, the processing lab that got the film reported back to them that the film was damaged, couldn't be processed.
Okay.
So they didn't have to use it. Which I thought, so it's not only do you have to write an amazing screenplay like this one, direct it beautifully like John Dahl did, have it acted beautifully like all the actors, then you just have to have all this extra luck that nobody else is going to come in and screw it up because of some dumb idea about what they think the public wants, which I thought was really funny. They also hired a testing consultant. And one of the questions, Rick Dahl talks about this, one of the questions was, did anything shock you or jar you? And they showed a clip of the cop getting shot by Dennis Hopper in the station. And Rick Dahl says, of course, you're supposed to feel shocked at certain points. Like, that is storytelling. That is life. Things happen and they shock you. It's not all supposed to be a pleasant experience with all the edges rubbed off. So it's amazing when a great film is allowed to be born sometimes.
Absolutely. I was shocked by J.T. Walsh's incredible chin on that man. He takes a boot to the face now. Obviously, it's a stunt, but he sells it really well.
You mean when they're in the truck at the beginning?
He absolutely gets booted to the face, and I have to imagine it connected on some level. Either that or they rehearsed that a lot.
What about with that when he says, don't fuck with me? He's like, don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
The way he yells that at Cage is so terrifying. I was like, wow.
All right, kid. Start talking, because you got about 2 minutes to tell me what the fuck is going on.
I just thought you needed a stupid bartender or something.
Don't fuck with me.
I'm not.
Okay. Who else knows about this?
Nobody.
I said don't fuck with me!
I'm not.
Yeah, he's channeling that Cage rage.
I was thinking he's more Cage than Cage in that moment. Yeah.
Oh my! What I love is that Cage responds calmly. He's like, I'm not.
And of course, fuck Mexico.
Fuck Mexico!
That'll live rent free in my brain for a while.
John Dahl said in this interview, he was like, I guess just at some point, Cage had to blow. He had to let it out. His character needed to vent, and so there it came out. I think the script is incredible. It's full of wonderful twists and turns that take Michael on this like delicious downward spiral that I find believable. I know you were saying, Frank, that like you felt like some of it might have been a little bit, not quite believable. I buy it all, and maybe that's because I'm gullible. I don't know, but I loved the twists and turns because it's such a small town that you do feel like you could run into these people that you're not really, that would be bad luck to run into. The dialogue feels really colorful, but like interesting and realistic and not forced. There's nothing very stagey about it. It feels very natural, and every now and then there's a little bit of like a lyrical flourish. And they wrote this when John was editing Kill Me Again. So they would write it at his place in the mornings for about 2 hours, starting at around 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And this was in order to have something ready to go when he finished Kill Me Again, his first film.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice some of those contrivances. I think that moment that you highlighted, Frank, with him kind of wandering in traffic at the perfect time, it does stick out a little bit, but they exist. They don't detract from my enjoyment of the film, certainly in any way. And I mean, yeah, and you meet people with that fluidity of speech and character like Lyle. I mean, the thing is that's part of why he's believable, is that you meet people that can just kind of grease a room like that. And kudos to the Dahl brothers for having the foresight to maybe channel people from real life that they've met like that. I don't know.
So I have a plot question that I haven't quite wrapped my head around.
Okay.
And it is why the ranch hand it's heavily implied that he's having an affair.
Yes.
Okay. How and why he's shot, when and where he's shot, because we find out he's shot by Lara Flynn Boyle.
Yes.
Okay. But why at that moment? So Nicolas Cage comes over, says, your husband had paid me to kill you.
Right.
Okay. So she says, okay, well, why don't you kill him instead? And then when he leaves, well, what does Nicolas Cage do? He takes the money, he fills up his car, and he gets a bunch of snacks.
Right. Well, food, yeah.
In that amount of time, she has to run out and go and kill her lover or put 2 slugs in him out in the middle of nowhere, come back home to be home in time to pick up the phone when her husband calls and finds out she's still alive. That's a little bit of a plot hole for me.
or he was shot earlier
and just hanging out because when Nicolas Cage is driving, he's driving in the rain, or for some reason it's he can't quite see.
Right.
But
it's raining.
But this guy, it looks like his car's just stopped. He comes out into the road. He's flagging somebody down.
Right.
So he needs help.
Right.
So why at that moment? You see what I mean? If she had, first of all, why did she? The question is, when did she shoot her rancher lover? And,
So according to, and this is not explained in the film, something that I read or saw, she shoots him when she visits his trailer home.
Mm-hmm.
And
but
so
he doesn't run out into the street.
He doesn't. I don't understand the question.
Doesn't he gets hit?
But he had not.
This is before he hadn't been shot yet.
Okay, so right.
So
right.
remember when she's riding the horse and she goes to his place. So she goes inside, and at some point toward the evening, apparently shoots him. Then she goes home. Then Nicolas Cage goes to her, and then that's when she pays him to kill the husband. Nicolas Cage goes, gets the groceries, drives away. Writes the letter, drives away, and this guy who apparently was able to somehow get into a truck and drive, apparently the truck breaks down. Now, I wish they had made it one bullet as opposed to 2.
Right.
Because that's a little bit, 1 bullet's hard to believe. 2 is like really hard to believe.
Okay. So that was the piece of it that I would not, without your explanation, I would have never understood that he was shot at home twice.
But also like he
gets in a car.
Yeah. He like gets shot and then he
gets hit by the car and he lives.
Yeah. And as they're driving up the car, like the car's like the front wheel is like off, which means that like he's got bullets in him while he's like
changing the
pulls
tire,
out the spare tire and the jack. He's like,
"Hey, buddy, you think you can help me? Have you been shot? Yeah, don't worry about it."
It's the unluckiest day for him.
Yes.
Shot, blown tire.
The movie should have been about him.
Run over.
He was the film noir character.
But then it reminds me of another thing then Nicolas Cage, he's trying to get out of town before, like he's in big trouble already because he just stole 10 grand, actually 15 grand, right? If he took 10 from her.
He took, right? Yeah, exactly.
So he's got 15 grand that he's trying to make off with.
Right.
And 2 people believe him to be a hired gun, right? Well, so because he's a nice guy, he decides to take this guy to the hospital who he's hit.
Right.
And then the doctor says, "Stay right there, mister. I've got questions for you." But he doesn't leave. Like, why does he stay? Just because
he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. And then what I love is then we cut to him like filling out intake forms.
Yeah. And he's just like, another form.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Timothy Carhart or Officer Matt is there, and he's pointing the finger at him. He says, "You're going away for a long time." And then when JT Walsh shows up, he has a change of heart very unexpectedly. He's like, "Well, clearly this guy didn't do anything." It's like, well,
he doesn't say you're going away for a long time.
No, I know. I'm paraphrasing.
Okay.
But whatever he says,
he just says it's suspicious the way I think what he says is, why are you leaving? Where are you going?
Right. But he seems,
and he said, "Well, I'm parked in the red."
Yeah. He just seems to absolve him of any potential guilt like right away as soon as JT Walsh goes. And so again, I think these contrivances exist. They just don't bother me.
I think the twist happens when he finds out that the guy's been shot.
Sure.
I think it was because if you shoot somebody twice and then run them over with your car, you're probably not taking them to the hospital.
Right.
Is the idea.
That's literally what the deputy says.
Right.
He says, "I don't think we need to worry about this guy. He brought him to the hospital." He's
right.
So yeah. But then, JT Walsh brings up a good point. He lives in Texas. What are you going to do? Give him a call when you need to ask him questions?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's very well written. I don't feel it being very contrived, but maybe I'm.
No, I don't either. I think that there are questions that the movie could do a slightly better or a slightly better job of answering, but I don't know. I mean, I'd have to stretch to think of too many examples of that. And
if Hollywood can give me a script of this quality at any time, I'm happy.
Yes.
And obviously this is an independent film, but I mean, yeah.
Now I saw, this is a random factoid, and you guys can maybe fill me in. Is there a famous Bill Pullman other than the actor that is like a critic or something like that, because apparently John Dahl, a factoid that's come up more than once is John Dahl, one of his teachers was a Bill Pullman, and I keep seeing this factoid like come up over and over again, and the only Bill Pullman I know of any repute is
that's the name, Bill Pullman. You're sure?
Yeah,
it's got to be a different.
It's weird.
Bill Pullman.
Yeah, it's weird because Bill Pullman's in The Last Seduction, his next film.
Exactly. So so then maybe that is a connection. It sounds like Bill Pullman was actually a teacher of John Dahl.
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe
I doubt that.
Maybe IMDb is leading me down the wrong path on this.
It could be.
Edit.
It's okay.
Anyway.
So what did you guys think of the music? The kind of chord, the slow, languorous Daniel Lanois chord strumming.
It very much matches the pace, which I've brought up a couple times already. This is such a deliberately paced movie, and these slow chords and its guitar riff, and it fits this movie very well. It places it. It helps me be in a Western.
Yeah.
This is a modern Western with a very Western sounding guitar, and you don't want a lot of music. You want as few notes as possible to match as few edits as possible. I love it.
What'd you think, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of Angelo. Is it Badalamenti?
Badalamenti?
Yes, that Twin Peaks score, which is fitting that Lara Flynn Boyle's in here. But, it's kind of got that Chris Isaacs vibe to it. I mean, yeah, I agree completely. The simplicity of it gives it staying power, and it absolutely fits.
I loved it. It's by William Olvis. I think it's simple, evocative, and moody. And I guess he's well known for his Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman show, the score that he did.
But it's the same thing I said about where the action sequences don't do a lot of typical action sequence stuff. Same thing with the music. So the score doesn't go into high gear at times when a more popcorn type movie would go, and here's an action sequence, and here's what, and we're getting. The score stays very moody, and in the same way that the camera work is there to serve the story.
Yeah,
the score is there to serve the story as well.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a movie that trusts. It has confidence in its own tone. For example, there's literally a chase, a car chase, or rather it's a chase when they're trying to kind of dodge the train or jump over the train track.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, but any other production would have had this pulse pounding song or score behind it, and absolutely unnecessary. The action inside the car is doing all the heavy lifting you need for that.
And we get a lot of horns from the train, right? So it's more of the soundscape of the reality of the situation that makes that scene very exciting.
Right.
So the stunt coordinator on this movie is a man named Dan Bradley. He's a very well-known now stunt coordinator and second unit director. He came up with, this is how good of a director John Dahl is. He came up with the idea of driving the car alongside the train and then having it jump in front of the train, which is an amazing, I think, stunt.
Yeah.
And totally works and totally tells us more about both Nic Cage's character and Dennis Hopper's character, right? Yeah. I mean, he's just 100% adrenaline it, and Nicolas Cage just wants to survive the day.
Yeah.
So I thought that was wonderful. If you guys have ever seen any 90s music videos, there's a famous one where it's by Spike Jonze, and I think it's called California by Wax, and it's a guy running and he's on fire in the music video.
Yeah, I have seen this.
That's Dan Bradley.
Wow.
That's him.
Okay.
He's the guy who did the stunt coordinating, second unit directing later on. Look him up, guys. If you don't know this guy's work, he's really a talent. And what's wonderful about Dahl, it seems like if he finds a collaborator he trusts, he's going to listen to them and mine them for all the ideas he can, which is exactly what a director should do.
Can you remind me story-wise of what's happening there when they're jumping the track? Because I remember the scene, and I've seen the movie twice now. And it's a great scene, and it's cool, and we get a flying car going over the tracks, and I'm pretty sure that's in the trailer for the movie. Is
right, of course.
The car leaping in front of the train.
Sure.
But for the life of me, I can't remember plot-wise what's happening there.
I'm trying to remember. Somebody's chasing them.
So I think
is it the cops?
This is after they try to rob the office, where Hopper kidnaps Boyle and Cage.
Yeah.
And Walsh is also. So I think at this point they've been exposed as frauds.
Right.
Walsh and Boyle. And Hopper now has them. Lyle now has all of them hostage.
But I think
the cops are after them.
Yeah. The reason that they jump the track in front of the train is to get away from the cops, I think. Because they're chasing them at that moment.
But I forget what puts the cops on their scent or exactly what precedes that.
I do too. I don't remember exactly how the cops got on their scent.
Somehow there was one scene in this film that was slightly less memorable than the others. But that definitely is an escape from the cops. Well, they're not being, the cops aren't like right on their heels, but you do get the sense that if they don't get ahead of this train, then they're going to be stuck in town.
Is jumping the train Nicolas Cage's idea, or is it Dennis Hopper's idea?
Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper literally puts his foot on the accelerator and pushes it all the way down, and he won't let up. So Nicolas Cage has to turn the car alongside the train because it passes in front of them.
Right.
And then he has to get ahead of it so he can pass it.
Well, and also there's like a truck in an intersection that they're going to hit too if they keep on their present course. So at some point, he has to gun it and make it over. So
Nicolas Cage is at the wheel and Dennis Hopper's got his foot on the gas.
Yes.
Right.
And that's a perfect metaphor for who's in control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It works.
And it's a perfect metaphor for like Dennis Hopper's character too. Just like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's literally making, like bull rider sounds. I mean, he's enjoying it.
You see him screaming in the foreground, like of the shot. It's great.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
I think to go back to the participation of the people who made this film together with Dahl, I thought the costumes were fantastic. They were simple, but like something about Nicolas Cage's denim jacket with the lamb wool or whatever on the inside is very memorable to me. And the blue jeans he wears, he's just a very like working class Canadian tuxedo, whatever kind of guy.
Yeah.
And, Lara Flynn Boyle's outfit is amazing. It's kind of showy and very effeminate and yet somehow powerful and striking. Same like I was talking about earlier with the hair. The costumes were designed by Terry Dresbach, and she is now a big costume designer. And I just thought her stuff was really tasteful and appropriate, and that her stuff told a story. Her costumes, told the story. And the same with makeup and hair. Just all around, just every department was just knocking it out of the park for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was struck by little pieces of tradecraft here and there. At a certain point, like I became very aware of like the crane operator and like the job that they were doing, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good for an indie." I wasn't prepared for that.
They had those 50 some odd days.
Yeah,
you can get some good crane shots.
Yeah.
I think I remember the first time I saw this a long time ago at home. I remember thinking about the shots at the beginning of just Cage in his car. He's living out of his car and he's got his knee and there's this very slow push into him along the side of this like abandoned highway.
Yeah.
And it was so evocative, and just thinking like it said so much with so little. I just think the Dahl's direction, I think Dahl is extremely underrated as a director. Guys, if you get a chance, check out his other noir films. In the 90s, he went on a tear and he just made a bunch of interesting crime films that did not get enough attention, and wonderful performances, wonderful writing. And this one and the next one, The Last Seduction, which The Last Seduction is probably the most famous of his features.
You don't think it's Rounders?
Well, maybe. Rounders, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that was like a bigger cast. I don't know. I don't know. In terms of film people, I would say Last Seduction. In terms of the general public, probably Grounders. You're probably right. But I think that this one and the next one both went straight to like cable and home video. They did not get releases because they weren't sure how to market them or make money on them, which kind of blows my mind. Like if this movie can't make money as a thriller in 1993, then what can? The theatrical release was canceled. It was sold to Columbia TriStar for $2.5 million. And then they put it on HBO cable. Foreign rights went to a subsidiary of Polygram named Manifesto Films. And the film like previewed with audiences afterward and did well. And then like the Toronto International Film Festival was interested in it. So they played it and it played to great success. And then like independent theater people were wondering about the film. Why is this film not being rented for screenings? And a guy at the Roxy Theater in San Francisco, your old stomping grounds, ran it and it became a hit. Like it became a little minor hit at the Roxy and also in New York. It wound up being one of the top grossing independent films of the 90s. And it played second run theaters there and in San Francisco and in New York and San Francisco, even while it was on home video and cable.
That's fantastic.
So that's how strong this movie was. And the fact that they couldn't figure out how to market it or make it into something that earned money blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, leave it to the apparatus of the big studios to... is this tangentially related to big studio money in any way? Or is this like wholly independently financed?
I think that's the point, is that generally with independent films, they are independently financed, and then you hope to be partnered with a studio.
Right.
And you need a studio to believe in the movie. And I think that's the crime of this not getting a theatrical release.
Right.
They needed to get their money back.
Right.
They needed to sell the movie. So if HBO was the only buyer, then they're going to go to HBO. Sure. And I think it seems like within the year that this movie was coming out, there were a lot of people who discovered it and said, oh, this probably could have been bigger. Right. But before enough people had seen it, I could imagine a room full of suits being nervous about this movie. And a much more recent movie that I feel has a very similar story is The Substance.
People always ask for something new. It's inevitable. At 50, well, it stops.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
So I don't know if you know much about how that got financed or put together, but it was initially going to be coming. I can't remember which studio it was, but there was studio money behind it.
You mean American Studio?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the director insisted on creative control, as she should have. And when the movie was done, the suits look at it and go, we don't know how to market this. And so they ended up selling the movie. Whoever was the original finance company.
I did hear about this. They sold it to Mubi, right?
Yeah, I think
it was Mubi, yeah.
Who then knew how to market. So in other words, they saw the movie. They said, this thing's too weird.
Right.
We don't know what this is. We don't know what the audience is.
Yeah.
We don't know if anybody's going to show up to see Demi Moore. Yeah. Okay. And so they didn't want to spend another dime marketing it.
But I understand that much more with The Substance than I do with this.
Well, I actually think they're similar in that they're both the movie the director wanted to make.
Well, in that sense, but they're completely different movies.
Yes, but
The Substance is much more gonzo and much more sort of out of in left field, whereas this movie is a little different than the typical thriller, but it's not that different.
I actually think whereas this movie has nothing in common with The Substance, you're right. Like that movie is very gonzo. This is in the other direction where I keep talking about I keep bringing it up, but the pace of this movie, this is this is so deliberately feels like a 1940s movie. Not everybody likes that pace of movie, and I think the people who got nervous and didn't know how to market this movie were concerned about the pacing and also those moments of action where they're purposely not making it more action-like.
Right.
And the score doesn't help. The score, this is a very moody movie. It's a very specific type of movie.
Right.
So I'm not defending the choice to not release it.
No, I understand.
I'm just saying it would make it would make the suits nervous in the same way the substance made the suits nervous.
I think that's a good point that you make about the pacing. I think I do understand how that could make people nervous.
Well, Frank, so do you get the sense, through your own work or your own experience that, or just having been in this business for so long, do you get the sense that, because we keep talking about how like this is a movie and, the substance by extension, these are movies where the filmmakers wanted complete creative control. Do you get the sense that can put kind of like a target on your back in terms of like the viewpoint of a distributor? Maybe they might hear that, or if they hear that reputation, they might think, well, they're going to make a creative choice that is not going to jive with some focus group or with general audiences.
Absolutely. The two are connected for sure, because everything from the Hollywood perspective, every decision has to be as safe as possible. Mm-hmm. We all know this. It comes up in every podcast about movies, that what's the problem with Hollywood? What's the problem with cinema? And it's that creative choices and financial choices rarely intertwine.
Yeah.
Superhero fatigue, right? There's an example where we go, okay, if we can smash a bunch of buildings and do that, then we can be creative and make a lot of money. So they're going to keep doing that until audiences stop showing up to see those, right? So it's really when you know what they say, like there can't be too many cooks in the kitchen, that kind of thing. So movies that are made by committee are going to be safer, and then they're going to be marketable. That's what they want. And then it's going to be less good generally. And so when you talk about a filmmaker who wants creative control, I mean, Quentin Tarantino is someone who you're not going to give him notes. He knows what he wants, and it just so happens to be real good at it. Yeah. And so you're going to get the movie that you're going to get, and they can market it as a Tarantino movie. Right. And so I think that this is just the issue where marketing is not filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And even when genre, and it's tough for me because, when I'm writing a screenplay and when I'm first pitching it, one of the first questions, well, what's the genre? What is this? What other movies is it like? I can't say it's original.
Sure.
This isn't like other movies. Right. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear this is Jaws in space. Yeah. They can market that.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure every executive loved to hear the phrase genre breaking. And they're like, what? Excuse me? Okay. That's interesting. I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the show is like get that perspective because, and you're talking to three editors here. I mean, the too many cooks in the kitchen phrase goes a long way. Trust me.
One thing that really surprised me was Sean Baker winning the Academy Award for Best Editor, specifically editor, because that's editors voting for him. And he is a writer, director, producer, editor.
Right.
Yeah.
Which really, isn't he taking a job away from an editor?
That's a modern phenomenon where the director is doing a lot of their own editing now. And so you would think that editors would be against that, but
no, a lot of them are. I mean, the Invisible Artists just happened, and I heard a lot of rumbling from some of the people that were at that.
Was Sean Baker there?
He wasn't there, but Chloe Zhao had one as an editor a couple of years before for No Man's Land. There's those similar grumblings for that. I mean, especially now. I mean, taking anybody's job should be taboo. But I mean, I guess that speaks to the strength of, or maybe the kineticism of that film, that it could withstand that kind of criticism.
And the Oscar goes to Honora Sean Baker.
Hey, everybody. Thank you to the Academy and everybody I mentioned earlier. I truly appreciate the recognition for this because, God, if you saw that footage, I saved this film in the edit. Trust me.
Well, speaking of editing, let's talk about Scott Chestnut.
Sure.
He is from Billings, Montana, just like the director. And he edited his first music video with John as director. So I thought he did a phenomenal job. I like the way it's paced. The deliberate pace you were talking about. Some might say slow burn. I love it. It doesn't seem slow at all to me because it just feels like the appropriate way to tell the story. And I think that the moments where there needs to be a speed up in action, they happen. I am much more a fan of action that is well planned and where you understand the space, as we were talking about before in the previous episode. I think that's much more difficult to achieve in a way that is convincing to an audience. Sure. And when a director can do that and does do that, it is more powerful, as opposed to just using a long lens and then cutting a lot, which to me is the most boring, unimaginative way to shoot an action scene.
And this movie does not outstay its welcome.
Right.
It's in and out. You know,
Yeah.
what is the
98 minutes.
98 that's
Right.
You know, this is a lot happens in that 98 minutes, right?
100%.
So even though, what's interesting is the deliberate pacing, and yet there's no wasted dialogue.
Right.
There's no scenes that don't belong.
Well, and by dint of the locations, I mean, even though there are some very striking locations, you mentioned the litany of places that they shot this, it is still all kind of desert locations, and that could all get monotonous really quickly unless you have kind of a crisp sense of movement to your editing, or you just understand the flow of the story. So kudos to him for figuring that out.
And Dahl said that, I mean, and I think he's being humble when he says this, is that the pacing is the editors. It's Scott's. He said, you know, that's one of the reasons why it works, he thinks, is the pacing, and it's largely Scott Chestnut's pacing. So good job, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to circle back to when you were talking about the director's career and his other films, and just looking at his body of work, it looks like he spent the 20th century working on movies and the 21st century in television.
Well, isn't that so true?
And yes,
for so many independent directors.
But he's worked on like all the best shows. I've heard of it. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah.
But if I've heard of it, he's directed an episode or two.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's happy as a clam doing that. I think he's the kind of, I don't know him personally. I bet he's a good guy to be on set with. Is just my guess.
100%.
TV workers TV directors who keep getting these gunslinger jobs, right? Coming in on this show, coming in on that show. That's somebody who is comfortable working within a story that's already set for them. Actors who are going to know their roles already, right? And just fitting it, sliding into that director chair, doing their job, and making the day, and and bringing a few choices to the table. But going back to that story you told at the beginning about the actor having the idea of revealing himself with the hat, that and the director being able to say, that's a great idea, let's make that idea happen. That's a guy who's going to add value to an episode of your favorite show,
right?
When you bring that director in,
right?
Yeah, well, and you were talking earlier, Frank, about the need to do that to maybe even kind of assuage personalities on a set. I mean, as you say, I'm looking at his TV filmography, and all of these series have huge stars on them. Ray Donovan, Yellowstone, The Americans, Justified, stuff like that, Billions, House of Cards. I mean, like, if you don't have somebody that can collaborate with the very serious personalities at that level, then you're dead in the water. So yeah, you're probably right. He probably is happy as a clam.
I love John Dahl. I hope he comes back to directing features. I think that while he's probably a phenomenal episodic director, and it makes absolute sense, directors from the 90s and 2000s who were in the independent space have largely moved over to the television or episodic space because of the economics of the industry and the way that challenging storytelling largely moved to the small screen. And so only the largest movies, which would often be 4-quadrant, very simple, kind of lowest common denominator films, some of which are great.
Sure.
The people who wanted to tell ambitious stories said, well, maybe I can go do something interesting on Dexter or something like that. And then they did. And that made episodic more cinematic and brought a lot of the quality that they could bring to features now to episodic. So while he's probably excellent at it, I have no doubt, I sure hope he gets to make more features because he's just so talented.
Well, couldn't some of this also be boiled down to, and we talked about in the Miracle Mile discussion, I mean, maybe it's just also that fight, or the fight to get a movie greenlit, and the fight to have the control, that you want. I mean, maybe that, I have to imagine that wears on a person after a while.
Right. Especially having 2 phenomenal movies that you've made go straight to video because people couldn't figure out how to sell it to an audience. That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
The post-production supervisor on this, why are you bringing him up, Bill? Here's why. Because it's a guy named Vincent Landais, and he went on to become a huge producer, particularly on the films of Spike Jonze. That was another guy. So this is another guy who worked at propaganda and later had a career making movies, made a lot of interesting films. He's probably made a movie that you love. Look out for him.
Very cool.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to point out about the film that struck you?
Well, I know this is a deep dive when we're talking about the post-production supervisor. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do that sometimes.
This is a movie that feels like it's a character actor movie, but it's really not. I guess I would say because of the intimacy and the size of the cast being what it is, yet it feeling so expansive, spells out that this is a pretty special film. And it's I was very surprised by it. And it is a shock that it's not on more radars.
Guys, go watch Red Rock West. He will be happy that you did so. Yeah. They did reshoot the sex scene with Cage and Boyle to make it sexier. What'd you guys think? Did they achieve sexiness? Prime sexiness?
After watching this movie, I was thinking about different movies that Nic Cage has, not necessarily a sex scene, but any sort of love interest. And what that chemistry is with him and his co-star. It's and across the board, no matter what movie it is, when Nic Cage has a love interest, there's just a different kind of energy than you typically have with leading men and leading ladies.
Yeah.
They usually are the ones seducing him.
Good point.
And he just has to sort of smolder and be Nic Cage and show off that very unusual chest hair of his. Sex scenes are not fun for anyone to shoot.
Right.
So the fact that they had to do it twice probably wasn't a picnic.
Right.
But I'm guessing that there was probably a chemistry thing that they were looking for, that they weren't getting. And I just think that of Nicolas Cage's many great qualities, I don't think being the lover is high on that list.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, and honestly, it doesn't even stand out to me, so it's probably money wasted. But hey,
it's a '90s thing, right? Where you need the sex scene.
You need the sex scene.
Well, yeah, and that's actually, you mentioned like how Last Seduction and what was the follow up to it?
Last Seduction after that, I think, is unforgettable. I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah.
Okay, well, so was Last Seduction also a direct to video?
It was.
So
yeah.
So the thing is, I also think that per your point there, Frank, I mean, I think that there was this erotic thriller thing going on in the early 90s that I think actually that market became a little bit oversaturated very quickly. And I'm thinking, and in fact, you looking at Last Seduction, that's a Linda Fiorentino film. I mean, she's had her share of those. I'm pretty sure that Jay didn't do quite as well as
I feel like Billy. Jade got made because of Last Seduction. Like Billy Friedkin saw Last Seduction, he was like, I could do that, and then he made Jade.
Yeah, turns out he can't. Sorry, Bill.
With Dave Caruso. I can be sexy.
There is one great line from that, though. Caruso goes into this, and this has been pointed out on a different podcast, but Caruso goes into this very like elaborate, kind of sex dungeon, and he looks in the fridge and sees like a drawer full of condoms and stuff, and he goes, "Oh my God, it's a fuck house." Anyway, I digress.
Strengths and highlights for me: the script, the direction, the acting, the cinematography. Weaknesses, I don't really see any. Do you guys have any? You've mentioned maybe a few issues with some of the believability. Were there any other weaknesses that you guys?
I just want to push back on that it's not that if there is a plot device, if there's something that's convenient that happens that forwards the story, I don't see it as a bad thing. It's a movie thing. It's part of what we love about the movies.
Okay.
And so I don't see it as a flaw. I love this movie.
Fantastic.
And to say that it's deliberately paced, right? If somebody, if what you want is, crank, right?
If somebody paced this up, it would annoy me to no end.
Right. No. So it's a very charming movie and really a love letter to film noir.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have very few complaints. I suppose I would say that the second act, I'm struggling to remember it more than Act 1 and 2 or Acts 1 and 3. So maybe it loses a little bit of its, I don't want to call it kineticism because I wouldn't have never described it that way in the first place, but it may require a bit of a pacing adjustment here and there, but I don't know. I mean, that's simply based on like my recollection of it. So I'm just having a harder time.
It's that unremarkable sex scene right in the middle of the second act.
Yeah, maybe
you're having a hard time remembering.
Or maybe it's just his chemistry with Lara Flynn Boyle in general. I mean, they might just be two actors that are kind of don't jive particularly well. I mean,
is she not weird enough for Cage?
Maybe. I don't know. Their chemistry isn't super compelling. They're both turning in great performances. I just maybe that's part of it. But that's such a minor gripe because it's so not front and center to what the film is doing there. So I don't.
But see, it worked for me because she's not actually attracted to him.
Right,
she's using
right,
him, so it worked for me.
Right.
It all worked for me any way I look at it. But I mean, I'm happy to hear, like any kind of difference. That's great. So, Frank, what are 3 films you've seen recently, old or new, that you'd recommend an audience check out?
I have 2 new and 1 old, which was a first view for me. I'll start with the old one, which is Assault on Precinct 13.
The original?
The original, which I had never seen. It's just one of those, and we all have movies on our list like, why haven't I seen that one? But I'm a John Carpenter fan, and like what really struck me about that movie is the score.
Yes.
And it's got one of these earworms. And in that way, the movie very much reminded me of Halloween, because a different genre. So to me, Halloween is a low budget movie that is just your basic psycho killer movie elevated by a earworm of a score, one of the greatest scores of all time. John Carpenter is a filmmaker and a composer, right? And so he puts those skills together and he created one of the greatest horror films of all time in Halloween. Assault on Precinct 13 is like a home invasion type movie with a score that elevates it thanks to John Carpenter's very unique style of composition. And so for anyone who hasn't seen the original Assault on Precinct 13, check it out.
Nice. I love that movie.
That
score, by the way, was the inspiration he drew was from Immigration Song from Led Zeppelin.
I see that.
So the dun 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 dun, and then he just kind of expanded it and slowed it down.
Very cool. Well, very cool. So check out that movie. Newer movie came out last year, Strange Darling.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Strange Darling. I went into, I don't want to say much about it because someone recommended it to me and all they said is the less you know, the better. And so that's what I will say to listeners. The less you know going into Strange Darling, the much better it is. I would even say do not watch a trailer. Go into that cold and you will have a great time.
I mean, this spoils or reveals nothing. 2 pretty electric performances at the center of that film.
Yes, the performances are incredible. And it's also not spoiling anything to say that the story unfolds out of order, Pulp Fiction style, to very, very good use.
Yes.
And that's how much I'll say. So check out that one. And my third one is a movie that sort of came and went under the radar. It's Steven Soderbergh's latest.
Oh, yeah.
Called Presence.
Oh, okay.
And a very unique movie. And again, this is a movie that, he had, I have to assume, complete creative control. It was very low budget, got a small theatrical release, but I don't think they knew how to market this movie.
No, they clearly didn't, because it's a POV. It's hard to even call it a horror film.
Right.
The marketing
they
really treats it like
they had to market it like a ghost story,
Yes.
like it's going to be scary. And so then they put these little tricks in the trailer to make you think it's going to be scary. It's not a scary movie at all.
It's a family drama.
And so you are and again, this is not a spoiler. This is what you learn right away. You are the ghost. The entire movie is set from the point of view of a ghost that's trapped in this house. And so everything, you're just observing this family going about their stuff. And you as the ghost have very limited things that you can do to sort of attract attention to yourself.
Right.
And so very, very unique, well done. I thought there's sort of a twist ending where all is revealed and it was done to great satisfaction for my money. And so I recommend checking that out.
Is that very different than David Lowery's Ghost Story?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
David Lowery's is very stylized. Well, I guess they share that kind of a meander, but no, David Lowery's Ghost Story goes so off the rails. It jumps through time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very simple movie. Presence is just very simple. In fact, I mean, for fans of, if you don't feel that Red Rock West is slow, you will enjoy Presence.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't another of Soderbergh's let's do this on an iPhone experiments, because it kind of has that feel.
Okay.
He was the camera operator.
Yeah.
He's always the DP now. Tell us about any projects you have coming out.
Oh, I'm really excited about NAMAKA. You mentioned it in that really well-written bio at the beginning.
I need to find out who that publicist is.
So it's looking like it's going to get a limited theatrical release. So we were talking about, the success or not for an independent film. I made this movie, we shot it about a year ago now, but I've got Jamie Kennedy from Scream and David Howard Thornton from Terrifier. And it's a unique movie. I set out to make a tropical thriller. I set out to make a movie it's set in Hawaii. And I don't want to give much away because it's a very twisty movie where things are not as you expect them to be. It's a little bit funny and a little bit scary. And I went with actors who have I would say, 1 foot in each world of comedy and horror.
Nice.
And I think that this wasn't going to be it's a low budget movie. It's my very personal story. It's the movie I set out to make where I can't even describe the genre. It's because it is many different things.
Okay, I literally was going to ask you about the genre.
Yeah,
so.
it's many different things. In some ways it's a throwback to like those 60s tiki movies, so because where I start from the point of view of a tropical thriller, right? So what does that mean even? And it's a guy, it's a guy on a tropical vacation, and then weird things start happening to him.
Yeah, I can think of maybe 2 other things like The Beach and Perfect Getaway.
Yes,
I don't know. I can't think of anything.
Yes, right.
And
it was completely independently made. I had no idea how it would be coming out. I needed a distributor, so in that way, I was very much relating to the plight of making a movie like Red Rock West, and then HBO is the only buyer. You're going to go to HBO. But I took this movie to AFM, the American Film Market, and pitched it around. And I found a distributor who was specifically looking for movies with a very niche audience, something that they can market to. So rather than just saying, I made a horror film. Well, who's your audience? Horror fans. Well, that's too big of an audience. If you're doing a limited theatrical release, they want something where they can find their audience very easily. And when I started explaining what this movie was, they go, okay, so you're talking about Polynesian culture, because I worked very heavily with, I had a Hawaiian cultural advisor work with me on the screenplay and on set to make this movie very as authentic as possible, even though it's from the point of view of an outsider. And it has a lot of tiki elements. There's Jamie's character appears in a tiki bar half the time.
Okay.
He's sort of like this beach bum character, is always sort of sucking on a Mai Tai. And we can market to the tiki enthusiasts and Jamie Kennedy fans.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Terrifier fans. It didn't hurt that I had the guy who plays Art the Clown.
Sure.
Although he's he just has a smaller part in this movie, but that was good enough for this distributor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
So we haven't dropped the trailer yet. It's all very it should be coming out August or September.
Okay.
And
the movie or the trailer?
The movie. And so the buzz will start soon. Okay. and so I'm very much so the distributor is called Disrupt Entertainment. They're new. Supposedly just very soon there will be a press release, I think, or a story was going to drop about this Disrupt Entertainment. I'm one of the 5 movies they've picked up to sort of launch this new company that is specifically doing indie films in the theatrical market. So limited theatrical releases, which hopefully will boost the downstream value as well.
That's excellent. Well, was any of the shot on location?
A little bit in Hawaii, a lot of it in Los Angeles. In fact, so you can find tiki bars anywhere.
Did you shoot at that tiki bar in NoHo? What's that famous tiki bar?
Well, we actually shot in Broken Compass, which is a newer one, but a gorgeous tiki bar. And I just remember I really wanted to shoot there because it's just so gorgeous on the inside. I'm like, this is going to look great on camera. And I remember when Jamie Kennedy showed up for his first day, and he walked onto set, he was just blown away. And at that moment, everything clicked for him. And like he found his character when he sat down in that bar, and he's drinking out of a tiki mug that's shaped like a parrot. And it was really fun seeing his craft sort of. And because when I approached Jamie about the role, I said, I wrote this role with you in mind, which was true. I said, if Randy from Scream had lived, spoiler alert, sorry, this is who he would have turned into.
Okay.
25 years later.
That's fun.
And he read it and he said, yeah, this is Randy And so we sort of had a little secret that Randy faked his death and moved to Hawaii, and this is him.
Is living out his life there. That's great. So how can people find out more about you?
I have a production company, which is lonemorsel.com. So that's my website where all my movies are. And you'll see that I've worked in different genres. I've made some horror films. I've made a rom-com. So I've done a little bit of everything. And I love interacting with people on Instagram as well. And that's just my name. My name is my handle, Frank Merle, at Frank Merle, I guess that is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this episode is sound engineered by Colin Dixon, edited and mixed by William Boudel. It was produced by William Boudel and Colin Dixon. Original music composed by Michael Riola. Recorded at Boo's Hollywood Dell in beautiful Hollywood, California. If you'd like to contact us with comments, suggestions, or high praise, email us at cosmicmotionshow@gmail.com or send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/cosmicmotion. You can find us on the socials at Cosmic Motion or Cosmic Motion Show. Emails, messages, audio, or other media you send us may be featured on the program. We want to thank our guest, Frank Merle.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
It's been my pleasure.
And thanks to my amazing co-host, Colin.
Don't piss on the seed, even if they did.
Thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode. We look forward to exploring the cinematic cosmos with you in the future. Until then, keep learning, growing, and creating.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
This podcast takes no shortcut in producing outstanding content. How they haven't become more widely recognized is beyond me.
I love this show. Smart commentary, in-depth interviews, and great production.
It's obvious how serious these guys take their podcast and bring that next level of professionalism that anyone would be hard-pressed to match.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.